that when there was one situation of a total, complete blackout, the diesel generators operated normally. We visited them, I saw them, I was talking to those in charge of that part of the operation of the plant. Logistical aspect and supply chain. This is important in terms of the replacement. You have to think about Zaporizhzhya, which is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, also as a big industrial facility. As any industrial facility, you need spare parts. There are things that need to be replaced, and so on and so forth. Given the anomalous situation of a war, it is obvious that logistical chains are interrupted. We were quite probing about this. We were discussing with people on site, and the impression that they gave us is that here there are no major problems. There are some interruptions, hence the qualification we are putting here. In the case of the radiation monitoring and emergency response, we have had some complete interruptions, hence the half-red situation, but also some systems are working well. So we do see a mixed bag. In terms of reliable communications with the regulator, it is also an operating function with some difficulties. So this gives you a bird's eye view of a situation which we are, of course, not wanting to banalize in any way. We believe, and I continue to believe, that the situation is extremely complex, extremely challenging, and it will continue to require the permanent support and the monitoring that we are trying to provide now that we are there. So now that I gave you this general overview, I am open to your questions. Thank you very much. Now, yes.
A couple of questions. First of all, so what do you know now that you didn't know just before going to Zaporizhzhya? And secondly, you mentioned specifically on the IAEA presence at the plant. You mentioned 6 people who are there now. I think if I heard you correctly, you said something about 2 people staying on in the longer term.
Yeah.
So when does that presence get drawn down? And these 2 people who will stay on, are they just supposed to stay there till the end of the war, or are they going to get rotated out? Like, what's the plan for the longer presence there?
I started with the easiest part. So those who are there will continue to be there. The end of the war, we all wish for that. We hope it happens soon. We don't know. We believe that it was important for the agency to be there permanently. And this is a good segue for the first part of the question. You were saying, what do you know now that you didn't know before? We knew a lot, but of course, our trade is inspecting. The difference between being there and not being there is like day and night. So, many things we had information, including remote data transmission, etc. But when it comes to many other things that are important, it's very different to go. Now, I saw, and as DG, but also my technical experts, things that were being said, and we were able to assess the seriousness of them and what other questions. You can compare it with the inspections in the safeguards area. You see something, then you ask something else. So we know much more, and we are learning even more as we speak.
What I was getting at is the fact that you've said you're going to report to the Board of Governors next week. And so I'm trying to get a sense of, how much information you expect to have by then, at what point you will obtain this information, that kind of stuff.
Well, we are getting this information all the time. Well, we have been getting it from the very beginning, and now we are trying to have an in-depth assessment of how things stand at the moment. I expect to produce a report early next week, as soon as we have the full picture of the situation by the end of the weekend, more or less. Yeah.
Hi, DG. How are you doing? I hope you're fine.
We are fine. I'm happy to be back home.
Okay, so DG, my main question to you, what is it that you are what is your biggest concern in terms of the safety of the plant? I mean, we can see the red spot here on the physical integrity. What is it that could happen? What is it that is you are mostly worried about? I mean, we all know about the cooling necessity, about the radioactive waste storage that is there. What is it that you are mostly concerned about? And I also have another question. You mentioned that there is a cohabitation between the Ukrainian staff and the Russian occupiers. Could you give us a bit of a sense of the atmosphere of what is it like to be there at the plant?
Well,
How does that
yours is a very deep
cohabitation work?
question, Stephanie. It's a very deep question that has human and psychological factors that I should be very prudent in answering. What I can tell you is that the plant is operating. There is a professional relationship between these experts. They are all nuclear experts, so they know what they are doing. They know what they are talking about, but they are human beings and they have sides on a wall that is affecting them and their families. So the situation is one of, I would say it's admirable for the Ukrainian experts to continue to work in these conditions, in the way they are doing. They care for the facility. They work very, very well. But of course, there is a tension. There is a latent tension there because of the obvious reasons of the war. So I would say this is something that must be dealt with enormous caution. And again, our presence there has a very big added value, I believe, because we can interact with people constantly, frequently, throughout days. They know that the IAEA people are there. So I think it is very important that we have this presence there. I missed something of your question?
That was the second question.
Yeah.
My first question was in terms of the
Ah,
risks,
what is
the
the
nuclear
most-
risks.
Well-
What is it
Well, you know,
your biggest concern?
I think we have to be looking at the main points. And when it comes to the main points, first of all is the physical integrity. Why? And here I will not get into that, but I will simply mention that it is obvious that there is a lot of fighting in the region in general, in this part of Ukraine. So the military activity and operations are increasing in that part of the country. And this worries me a lot. This worries me a lot. There are references to offensives, counter-offensives. I don't want to get into that because it's not my domain, but it is obvious and we all know it. And everybody acknowledges it on site. So it is obvious that the statistical possibility of more physical damage is present. Let me give you an example. The physical damage to the plant, with the exception of the event on the night of the 3rd to the 4th of March with this fire, the shelling actually started in August. So it is quite clearly a more recent trend, if I can call it like that. So what we see with this increase of military activity is that the physical integrity is more compromised. And with that, I take you to four. I take you to the power supply, because it is clear that those who have these aims, these military aims, know very well that the way to cripple or to do more damage is not to look into the reactors, which are enormously sturdy and robust, but to hit where it hurts, so the plant becomes very, very problematic. So my concern would be, the physical integrity, would be the power supply, and of course the staff. So these are the areas. The rest are things that we can work on: radiation systems, supply chain, all very, very important, all very important. But of course, they have a lesser degree, if you want, of dramatism when it comes to what, if I have to address your question directly. Thank you. Next.
Matthias Röder, German press agency. You call the mission now a permanent mission, and how sure are you that the agreement with both sides will be a stable one? And will there be a moment when you describe the danger, which might be increased in the next weeks or months, when you will withdraw your own stuff?
Well, how sure I am, we can never be sure. What we need to do is to always try and to improve. If you look at what we have now, it is far, far better than what we used to have. Now I have my people. I was there. We have a big team there. We have people who are going to stay there. This has tremendous value. This is a huge difference. And of course, if something happens, or if any limitation comes, they are going to be reporting it. They're reporting it to us. It is no longer a matter of said. Now the IAEA is there. And this is, like I said, from night to day. In terms of the people being there, naturally, for me, the safety of my people is the first thing. You remember that I said I will never send somebody to a place where I don't go myself first. And this is what I have been doing. Now that we know that we have a certain degree, a system that is working, we have our people there. And it has been very challenging. Of course, we are looking at this. They are in constant communication with us. If something happens, of course, we will take the necessary measures. Thank you. Jordi?
Hello, Jordi from Agencia F. So just to be clear, the 2 who stay are in the group of the 6 who are there now.
Yes.
And the 4 are coming back
next week,
days.
At some point.
And with whom did you negotiate? Both sides agreed that these 2 people will stay there?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And the 4 will come back the way you came back, or is this going to be a different way?
Well, there are logistic aspects related to that, but they are going to continue to count. And thank you for the question, because I want to recognize the support that we received from the United Nations Department of Safety and Security. We have incredibly good people there that are coming from the most, difficult hotspots in the world, and that they were accompanying us and guiding us through what they themselves recognized was a very challenging thing. So they are going, of course, to continue to have the support.
But that's the deal, for example, that's this regular updates you were sending, in which you said the Ukrainian side told us this and this. It will change now. It will be always your own information.
Of course. Yes, Jordi.
There are informations that you don't have the access to the inner circle of the facility. Can you confirm this?
What do you mean, sorry, by the inner circle?
Inner circle, the crisis center.
No, yeah.
Okay, the crisis center.
Let me.
And it's a problem to control the situation there.
No,
if you can't go there in this inner circle or in this crisis circle.
Let me explain. Every nuclear power plant has a crisis center where certain operations can be handled in every circumstance. This place is being used for other things, but there has been another center set up for the facility to continue working. So there is no, I would say, influence in the operation of the plant because of the non-availability of this place that has been chosen, of course, by the military occupiers to have a place I cannot get into that because I don't know, frankly. I'm not hiding anything from you. But it is obvious, and we will be recommending that the plant should have its normal, operational centers and rooms for that. I want to emphasize this because this idea I have seen in some of the comments and reactions that we were not shown, that we were paraded. We've seen what I requested to see, everything I requested to see, even as we were going along. When something we thought should be seen, I said, I want to go here and there, and we saw everything. I want to emphasize this because I think it's very important. When we go somewhere, we do what we need to do. And if we are prevented from doing it, we just come back and say we were not able to do it. So thank you for the question.
Hi, welcome back, DC, and for everybody from the group. You mentioned that, I'm going to take it off.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned that the presence of the IAEA is very necessary to stabilize the situation. Now, apart from getting the hands-on information from the group who are going to be there, what else do you expect this presence would help? What is your expectation of having them there in terms of stabilization? That's question number
yes.
one. Could I just do the second one?
Yes.
So,
everybody has two questions in one.
Yeah.
So it's very,
Okay.
very good,
Thank
very
you.
efficient.
So there are expertise of three major areas: the security, safety, and safeguards. And now you're leaving two people. Are they the safety people or are they the safeguards? Because safeguards was one of the top agenda, actually, although it wasn't really reported much, but
Yes.
it was a huge,
Thank you for
huge
asking.
agenda for you. So what would be the constellation, and would that hinder your presence in assessing if one of the three is missing among the two?
Well, what we try when we put together our teams with the support of my deputies here, we try to have the best combination of knowledge as necessary for what we believe we are going to be doing at the plant. We chose a very experienced team, and I can assure you that we will at all times have the necessary knowledge on site, on safety and security and on safeguards. Could be two, could be three, but at all times we are going to be able to have that. And so, and the first question was?
How is that going to help to stabilize the situation?
Well, this question of yours, of course, has a subjective factor to it. But I would say that the fact that the IAEA is there, that we have our people there informing 24 hours a day, assessing what is going on. And for those who may have intentions on the plant, knowing that international inspectors are there witnessing and informing immediately what is happening has, I think, an inherent, very important stabilizing effect. I don't want to aggrandize or pretend that what we are doing is going to either settle this terrible war or give back the plant to Ukraine. This is beyond our capacities. What we are doing there is stabilizing, looking at the safety, the security, of the safeguards aspects of the plant, in the conviction that if we get this right, this will have some bearing, influence in what happens overall.
Hello, Paula
Hello.
from ZDF. Ukraine criticizes that the IAEA does not speak out clearly in favor of demilitarizing the zone around the nuclear power plant, while Russia, on the other side, welcomes your presence there, while also protecting the site militarily. Doesn't that make the IAEA a political play ball that it not should be?
Listen, your question, which is a very interesting one, can apply to everything we do. if you look at other situations with other countries that I'm not going to mention now because they are not part of the discussion today, you will find the same thing. When people tend to like what we say, they will praise us. When they don't like it, they will say that the DG is a puppet of whomever, or that we are being manipulated, or that we are never manipulated. We never lose our north. We know what we need to do, and we listen, of course, respectfully to all this noise, but our ability is to, keep focus on what we need to do. We are aware of the comments, and of course, it is very legitimate for member states to expect that the agency or myself will say exactly what they would like the DG to say. Of course, I have to be very clear in what I do. I have to be prudent in what I say. My responsibility is 360-degree one. So I have to be looking at all the factors involved and how everything I say will be affecting other important pieces of the operation that we are having. So, frankly speaking, there are enough political players in this game, and there are enough people saying what they feel or condemning one or the other. The nuclear watchdog has to remain what it is. The nuclear security, safety, and non-proliferation watchdog, and it has to do its job, to have its credibility. We respect and we understand that people have these expectations, that we will demand these things. But what we believe is that where the IAEA adds value is in its technical work, not if I am one more of those saying A or B against A or B.
Since we can ask two questions, the second question.
You're right.
Do you think the IAEA can now stay constantly there to watch the site and give us information about what happens there?
I hope we are not going to be constantly there. I hope that normalcy will return. I hope that there will be a day, not in the any distant future, where the plant is going to be operating again normally and with its normal owners and operators, and we are going to be visiting periodically as we did. I think in all its drama and in all its tragedy, this proves why you need organizations like the IAEA that can go there, try to provide a degree of stability, a degree of certainty about what is going on. Now, when you will hear that there is an allegation that something has happened at the plant, you will be able to turn to us, because you are doing it now, but now we have people there. People who are going to be telling, this is the situation, this is what happened, we are talking to A, B, and C of the engineers, and this is what we see. Or we are not being allowed. We are locked in a room, DG. What's going on? And then we will know we are in trouble. So I think that's the difference.
Thank you. My question is, you said you're technical experts, but for sure you met the heavy armed soldiers, you spoke to them. How was the connection with them? Was it terrifying with them? Were they friendly? And did you maybe try to speak about demilitarized area with them, or was it clear, no speaking about this? Can you tell us about the atmosphere with the Russian soldiers?
I would say that the military present, those there did not approach us in any way. Were not available for. I asked on a couple of occasions to talk to one of them, but they were not available. Precisely on this issue of the control center, of the crisis center, because I wanted to ask why they were there and if this room could be returned to its normal functions. But it was evident that this group was very withdrawn throughout our presence there. But what we got from our Ukrainian counterparts is that in general, this is the case. They are working with their Russian technical counterparts. And I described this situation before. It's not an easy situation. It's a tense situation. It's not an ideal situation. It's a situation everybody is coping with.
I have a question. So you said they are still operating 2 plants. How is it the situation that there are occupants there and people, Ukrainian people working? How is this possible when there is a war going on?
It is possible. It is happening. It has been happening since the plant was occupied. There is a military force that has taken over not only the plant, that part of Ukraine, and they are in control. The plant continues. Some decided to leave the plant and are not working there anymore. Some decided to be there and to continue in their work. This is why I have been saying that this is a situation that it is not, we cannot envisage this to continue for a very long time until there is clarity about what is going to happen. These people basically are very fundamentally uncertain about the future, as we all are. Do you know what's going to happen with the war? I don't, you don't. We hope for peace, but we don't have it yet.
Okay. And second question, very short. Which impact could be, especially on Austria, Vienna, for example, if you compare 86 Chernobyl,
Yes.
and but it was far smaller plant, right? So
well, I would say I've heard comparisons, and they make sense in terms of the public interest, because people, of course, relate to Chernobyl. I think the situations are quite incomparable. These are operating nuclear power plants. They have degrees of safety that are immensely higher than what happened there. There are, however, risks in terms, for example, of the spent fuel storage, which is there in case it was attacked or there was an impact there. It would, of course, not be comparable to what happened at that time, but it could have transboundary, perhaps, effects or regional. It would depend, I don't like to avoid the question, but I don't like to speculate too much, because, it could be, a big thing or a small thing, depending on the damage.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
Did anything surprise you at Zaporizhzhya? So a lot of things you've described are things that, pretty much what you'd expect or what we'd known before, but were you surprised by anything there?
Not surprised. Not surprised.
And no more questions? You have one, please.
I haven't a couple of questions as my
Please.
colleague, but I have one question in French. Monsieur Rafael, avant de partir, vous avez dit que vous avez peur de la situation. Est-ce qu'après votre visite, il y a toujours le danger? Parce qu'il ne s'agit pas qu'une, disons, centrale en Ukraine, mais une centrale qui risque d'être dangereuse pour tout le continent.
Oui, je crois que c'est un peu la question de notre collègue ici. C'est une question